G'day and welcome to Disc Golf Down Under. It's Matt here, and in this video I want to cover 10 important things that you need to know before you play your first disc golf competition. Now, it may sound complicated and you may think that you're not ready to play in a disc golf competition yet. However, if you've caught the disc golf bug, I highly recommend you start playing competitively as soon as you possibly can. You'll have heaps of fun, meet new people, and learn heaps of new tips and tricks that will help improve your game. Now, before we get started, this is the 6th video in a series of videos that I've created for new players getting into disc golf. So if you're just starting out and looking for more info, check out my Getting Started with Disc Golf playlist in the description below. And if you like the content, please consider subscribing to the channel as well. Okay. So you've been playing disc golf for a while, maybe on your own or perhaps with a group of friends. Why should you consider playing in a competition? Firstly, I think a lot of people think they're simply not good enough and that they'll be embarrassed throwing around much more experienced players. Hey, I was like that myself, and it took almost 7 to 8 months after I started before I gathered up the courage to play my first league round. But honestly, you're missing out on so much. These days, disc golf is growing exponentially, and you'll find that half or more than half the people at competitions have been playing less than a year. So don't be worried or embarrassed. We all started somewhere and we all remember what it was like playing in our first event. But before you dive in, here's 10 important things that I think you need to know before your first competitive round. Before you register for your first competition, have a look at the membership requirements that are required to play. Now, if it's something like a league day or a social event at your local club, there's probably not going to be any special requirements. The aim of these events is to get new players into the sport, so we don't want to put too many hurdles in the way. And these types of events are a great way for new players to ease in slowly and get a feel for disc golf competition without all the stress. Moving up to the next level, and let's talk multi-round or multi-day events or tournaments. Here in Australia, to register for most tournaments, you must be a member of the Australian Disc Golfers Association, or the ADG. But don't panic, it's free and easy to sign up. I'll put a link in the description below for the ADG. It may be a similar situation in other countries around the world, so just check the registration requirements for the event before you sign up. Then, if we move up to even larger tournaments, you may need to be a member of the PDGA, or Professional Disc Golfers Association. Now, don't let the title put you off. You don't need to be a professional disc golfer to join the PDGA, but it does cost a small amount of money. For amateur and junior players, it's $20 US a year, and for that you receive a membership card, a rule book, some stickers, a UDisc Pro subscription, and a few additional benefits. Now, UDisc itself is an excellent disc golf scoring app available on iOS and Android, and I think the membership is worth it just for the access to UDisc. So a PDGA membership is something to consider when you're well and truly hooked and you're interested in those larger tournaments. So you've decided to register for a competition, and during the sign-up process, it's asked you to select a division to compete in. And this is probably one of the most confusing things for a new player during the sign-up process. So let's talk about divisions. Now, like many sports, disc golf has different divisions to group players of similar skill levels, and in total there's close to 50 different official divisions available. However, you'll usually see a lot less divisions available at most competitions. And in Australia, it's usually cut down to around 12 divisions for most events. Now, divisions use a 3 or 4 letter naming code, so let's quickly cover this. So it starts off with the first letter, and that'll either be an M or an F. M means mixed division, so either males or females can play, or F means females only. So first, if you're a gal, look for an F division first if available, but otherwise you may need to play in an M division. For guys, you must play in the M division. The next letter will either be a P, an A, or a J. P is for professional players that compete for money, A is for amateur, and J is for junior under the age of 18 years. Following this will usually be 1 or 2 numbers. If it's a single number, 1, 2, 3, or 4, this is a skills-based division, and if it's a 2-digit number, it's an age-protected division, which means you must be that age or older to compete in that division, except in the juniors where it's the opposite. Okay, so where should you start for your first competition? An adult female player should look at FA4 if available. This is the Female Amateur Novice Division. And an adult male player should look at MA4, Mixed Amateur Novice. For smaller events, women may need to play in the mixed division if there's not enough female competitors for the female division. And if you're under 18, look for the age division with the number equal to or less than your age that you'll turn during that year. So for example, if you turn 11 during the calendar year, you can play in Junior 12, Junior 15 or Junior 18 divisions, but you cannot play in 6, 8 or 10. Most competitions will have an entry fee. This will usually be a small fee to cover costs, insurance and prizes. Larger events may have player packs including clothing, discs and other goodies, and this is why the entry fees for larger events might be much higher than single round league day event. You may also be asked if you want to enter an ace pot. This is usually optional and it's a small sum, maybe a couple of dollars, that goes into a kitty. If anybody who enters the ace pot scores an ace, a hole in one shot from the tee into the basket, they win whatever money's in the ace pot kitty. That might be a small amount, might be a few dollars, could be a couple of hundred or even thousands of dollars. The skill's important, but luck has a lot to play with it as well. Should you enter the ace pot? Well, if you can't throw the disc far enough to reach any of the baskets on the course, then probably pass. But if you do have the distance, you have to be in it to win it, and it'd be a shame to get your first ace and not be in the ace pot. Next up, it's fairly obvious, but you need to have at least some understanding of the rules of the game you're going to play. You can find the rules of disc golf on the PDGA website, and I'll put a link in the description below. For a newcomer, it can be a little overwhelming, hard to understand fully, but it's a good idea if you can at least read through the rules at least once. And just to help out, I'll quickly cover some of the common errors that new players make in their first competition. Now, many of these are bad habits that we pick up when playing recreationally. One of the most important rules is to throw your disc from the correct place, or what we call lie. So you've thrown your first shot from the tee pad, and the disc is sitting on the ground. This disc now marks your lie. When you throw your next shot, a part of your body, usually one of your feet, must be in contact with your lie, which is a 30 centimetre by 20 centimetre rectangle behind your disc or marker. Now think of this as an imaginary sheet of paper behind your disc. You're not allowed to step on your disc or throw from behind the lie. You can also not have a part of your body touching the ground in front of the lie. Another important rule related to this is when you're within 10 metres of the basket, or what we say is inside the circle. You may even see the circle painted on the ground or indicated by markers. So if you're inside the circle, inside the 10 metres, your front foot must remain planted on your lie until your disc comes to rest after you throw it. So you can't jump in the air, you can't leap forward, you've got to keep your foot planted. Next, practice throws. When we're playing for fun, we might throw a bad shot. So we grab a disc out of our bag and we throw a second shot. In a competition, this is called a practice throw and it's not allowed. If you throw a second shot, you will be penalised. Also, be careful throwing your discs back towards your bag. Any discs that's thrown further than 5 metres is classified as a practice throw and is against the rules. Another thing that many recreational players do is when you're close to the basket, you might just slap the chains with your discs to complete the hole. The rule states though that the disc must come to rest in the tray of the basket or in the chains. So make sure you drop it into the basket and let go of the disc, and then you can pick it up again. But it must come to rest in the basket. Now, in addition to the written rules, there's also a number of unwritten rules, or what we call etiquette. This is the expected behaviour of a disc golfer when playing. And a lot of this is just common sense. I've actually got another video linked here on the top 20 unwritten rules if you want to check that out. Now, in addition to disc golf discs, you'll also need what we call a mini marker. Now, the typical mini marker that you'll see most players with is a miniature version of a full-size disc like these. You can pick these up from disc golf retailers for around $5 to $15. However, you don't need a mini disc. The PDGA rules say that you can use any object that's circular in shape, between 7 to 15 centimetres in diameter and no greater than 3 centimetres thick. So I could technically use any of these household items as a mini marker. Just make sure that they won't blow away or move in a gust of wind. But for example here, I've got the lid off a hot chocolate container. I've got even the lens cap off my camera, would classify as a mini. A cover off some plastic containers, or even a saucer for a teacup. So why do you need a mini marker? Well, firstly, let's say you want to throw the same disc again, the one that's now sitting on the ground, marking your lie. You can take your mini, place it directly in front of your disc, in line with the basket, and then pick up your disc. The mini now marks the front edge of your lie. Another time that you may need to use a mini is when you throw out of bounds, such as over a fence or into a lake. The rules state that you must mark the lie of your next throw with a mini marker. So make sure you have a mini and you use it. It's possible that you could play a competition without using a mini, but more likely than not, you'll need to use one at least once during a round. If you forget, ask your group, as somebody is likely to have a spare and you can borrow theirs. Worst case, if nobody in the group has a spare, you can borrow somebody else's mini just for when you need it and return it after you've used it. Now, another big no-no in competition is flipping your disc over as an alternative to using a mini. This is also against the rules. Another important rule that is overlooked by new players is the requirement to uniquely mark all your discs. The keyword here being unique. Now, most people will use a permanent marker, a Sharpie, and write their name and phone number on the back of the disc or in the inside of the rim. That way, if you lose the disc, it may be found and returned to you. However, you can mark the disc in any way you like, as long as it's unique. You could use symbols, your signature, another player's autograph, a bunch of lines or patterns, whatever you like. The aim of this is so you can identify your disc if two identical discs are in play and there's any doubt over who owns which disc. In a competition, there's a requirement for at least 2 scorecards to be kept by each playing group. Now, this can be done electronically using a mobile phone or good old-fashioned paper. So make sure you pack a pen or a pencil in your bag before your round, just in case. For your first competition, you may not be asked to score, but be prepared, and if you're confident, volunteer to do the scores. Now, when it comes to scoring, it's important to keep track of your scores on each hole, as well as keeping track of your playing group. At the end of each hole, the scorer should ask each player their score, and you should provide this as a total number of shots, including any penalties for the hole. Not as a par, or a birdie, or 1 over. This can lead to scoring errors and mistakes. Also, if you disagree with the score given by another player, question it and ask the player to confirm their score. It might be an honest mistake, especially for new players, or they may be trying to cheat. Probably one of the best things that new players can do before a competition is to watch any of the fantastic tournament coverage that you can find on YouTube. This might be the edited coverage by the likes of Jomez Pro, Gatekeeper Media, or the live coverage provided by the likes of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. The live coverage is a good one to watch because you get to see how the game is played without the bits being edited out. Now, my number 1 advice to new players is to ask questions, lots of questions. It's the best way to learn. If you see a player doing something that you don't understand, ask them why. If you're in a situation where you're not sure what your options are, ask the group for help. If you're not certain about a specific rule, explain to the group what you intend on doing and ask if that's okay before you do it. We all started somewhere and we all understand how confusing some of the rules can be, so you'll find most experienced players willing to answer questions and provide help. And finally, relax and have fun. Enjoy the surroundings, relish the social aspects, and don't take your first tournament too seriously. Before I wrap this one up, I want to give you my experience playing my first competition. On my first tournament, I went big with the 2018 Australian Championships. I've been playing for a little under 12 months, and at the time I was playing well, and I was convinced into playing intermediate MA2. I arrived at the tournament feeling confident and thought I had a chance of winning my division. However, I put way too much pressure on myself. I was tense, I was thinking about how I was throwing. I threw terribly, and after 81 holes, I finished dead last in my division. I was really disappointed, but I learnt heaps. And from that point, I tapered my expectations and attitudes, and I went into tournaments to have fun and just play. 12 months later, I became the Australian champion in the MA40 division. Okay, so there you have it, my top 10 things that new players need to know for their first competition. I hope you found this information useful, and let me know in the comments what one thing worked for you in your first competition. Is it one of my top 10 or is it something else? Also, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to Disc Golf Down Under if you want to see more content like this. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.